What do other Christians disagree with you about the most?
Kanye West.
What?
Calvinism.
You got to explain further.
Well, this is before Alex Jones era, but yeah, I was giving him
so
the
you're
benefit of the doubt.
dispensational Kanye West. There's eras.
Yeah, but no, that's what I've gotten a lot. Actually, no. In that same vein, I think what a lot of people have disagreed with me on the most has been the entertainment or the art side of Christianity. Like, what is the role of art within the context? How do you create quote unquote biblical art? And I think like I have a very long leash for that because I'm a creative, and I guess my bias is kind of there. But I get a lot of like, for example, The Chosen, and I'm sure somebody here disagrees with me, but I think it's effective, I think it's needed, and I think it's well made. And I think that we have to allow for good and beautiful art to be made with the image of Jesus as the center of the storyline, in order for us to touch the hearts of people that may have their hearts hardened to the gospel. Yeah. So that's just one of the things.
Not to steal your answer, but for me it would be the same thing. It's like, oh, you're creating entertaining content for Christianity. How does that work? Christianity shouldn't be something to entertain. It's something that you should take in. It's a relationship with God, and it's something serious. It shouldn't be something to joke about. So that would be the same thing. I
don't think the issue with The Chosen was the fact that it's entertaining, though. I think the issue of The Chosen is the fact that the guy's not even a Christian. He's a Mormon.
Catholic?
He's a Mormon.
No. You're talking about
but what I mean, my response.
The guy who runs The Chosen is a Mormon.
Dallas Jenkins?
Well, no, he's not actually. The guy, okay, if you're talking about the guy, who's the person who wrote that long book series?
The one who produces The Chosen is a Mormon.
No, he's not a Mormon.
The guy at the front, Dallas, is not a Mormon.
Dallas Jenkins is not a Mormon.
I think his like number one partner is who's the Mormon.
Dallas
in
Jenkins
the
is the director/producer, and he's evangelical, but his like financial or something like that is Mormon. I forget who, but yeah.
So Jenkins is Mormon.
There is Mormonship in the leadership because I think Angel Studios is.
Probably Google that real quick to make sure.
No, he's definitely not because I did a deep dive into this. I mean, I don't watch The Chosen, but I'm in the middle on it. But this is not me talking. I'm the host.
But my response wasn't about The Chosen. It was more about me creating content and trying to be entertaining with it.
Hold on,
and The Chosen is just an example.
Yeah.
Right?
Let me just throw this out there. So what if somebody who is a non-believer created a movie or a series or something that was completely to the T scriptural? Would we not be allowed to watch it?
I think the word is true, no matter what.
I mean, that kind of falls into a similar camp. Like, are you not allowed to read a Ravi Zacharias book now because of the scandal? To me, it doesn't make much of a difference whether or not. I wouldn't ever use an example of something that I don't think has a good stigma to it, because there's stigma and connotation to everything. But as far as if something's true or not, it has no bearing.
Yeah, this goes back to the art versus the artist argument, right? Like, can you separate the two? And in my opinion, I think you can. I think it's an individual thing. I think people individually feel differently. But in my opinion, I think we should separate the art from the artist, because all of us are fallen, all of us are sinners, and nobody will ever live a perfect life in order to make a perfect piece of art. And so I think we should take the art for what it is at face value.
And I think it depends upon the art. Like, I would say there's a difference between someone making music for the church to sing and they're not a believer.
100%.
And versus something that might be considered entertainment that isn't for the church to use to worship God and sing corporately. I think there's a difference, but in my mind, at least, that's where I start to draw a line in the sand of, if it's created for the church and the people of God, then perhaps if we're getting into the movie video realm, I think there's a lot more liberty in that space. But for me in The Chosen, it's the same for me and Christian music that may be coming from places that have bad theology.
We have that question coming later.
I'll save it. Okay. So, I'll save it.
Your question is a hypothetical that in all reality doesn't really exist.
Yeah.
But what I can use as a real-time example is John Cooper, who's a friend of Bible Lingers. Not like friend, like we'll go out together, but like, we've done a couple interviews together. And I don't know anyone more artistic than John Cooper. And people will stretch his album covers and say, they're demonic. No, that's a perfect example of a person who cares about being theologically sound, but also offers edgy art. And I totally appreciate his art. I totally appreciate his songs. I totally appreciate his heart. If you listen to his podcast, there's no one more sound than him. If you listen to his music, some of the stuff is not necessarily like quote unquote from the Bible. Right. Definitely he uses his art to drive his music, but at the same time, he's very theologically sound. I see nothing wrong with that. On the other side of it is Kanye West. Yeah. And it's not just art being art. It's words he said that's very unclear, and that's why people question him.
Yeah, Kanye went a lot off the rails.
I was about to say a little. We have to define these words here. What do you mean by little?
Yeah.
What do you mean by little?
I think I look at somebody like, for example, I don't know how many of you guys may know John Bellion. No, but he's
a singer.
The singer. Yeah, I don't know how Christian or not Christian he is. I know he has been. But his art emotes the internal conflict of being a Christian trying to contend with the problems of the world. And I think just that emotion being honestly contributed to in music that is not sang from an altar on a Sunday, I think is a beautiful thing, and I think Christians need it. We need to be able to see somebody that accurately depicts the struggles we go through. Another artist like that is King Kaleidoscope, is that it? Or is it backwards? King Kaleidoscope. They do an amazing job of just showing that depressive side of like, God, am I even good enough? Or where are you right now? Very Psalms-like, very, David-like, but then also providing some sort of glimmer of hope for getting through that. I think
and
that's
their music is truly unique. It's unlike any other band that
and
exists.
it's good. Yeah.
So to be fair, none of us, I think, have any problem with using art in an edgy way. I think the heart's intent is what we're looking at. And,
So since we're here on the subject of music, what are some Christian bands or Christian musicians that you love to listen to? And then also, what are some Christian bunny ears bands that you think people should really stay away from?
I could take this because I'm a music minister at my church.
Go for it. There you go.
So I will not sing a Bethel song. I used to be different because I was like, music is music. At the time, I was so into music. I would hear Bethel, Elevation, Hillsong, I would hear hymns, and not once did I ever look up a church. I'd just go on Spotify and enjoy music, and this song's awesome. And not once have I ever looked up the church. So that whole argument where someone could walk in and really love a song and ultimately then look up the church and be led astray wasn't valid to me personally. But then when Bethel had Kenneth Copeland on a couple weeks ago, like, not saying that I didn't make that decision earlier, but that was the line in the sand for me. Because Kenneth Copeland is leading people to hell. So if someone did accidentally fall into the church teachings and found Kenneth Copeland, it's not helping them. But I enjoy Austin Stone. I like City of Light. I like Shane and Shane, Worship Initiative. These are all bands that I think pretty much you can listen to anything you want and they're going to be safe. But old school Hillsong, I mean, cancel me. I still love some of those songs.
I agree.
That Hillsong, I wouldn't have went to church. That's how I got invited. Somebody's like, "Yo, you got to come. It's like a rock concert."
Came to my rescue, man.
It was
some of those songs. Some of those songs are classics, and most of those songwriters don't even go to Hillsong anymore, and they automatically align them with the way Hillsong went. But if you compare Hillsong now to Hillsong 30 years ago when most of those songs came out, they're two different Hillsongs.
Yeah. Well, so here's a question in this same light. Does it matter if a hymn writer or someone of antiquity had bad theology and we sing their music versus someone today who has bad theology and we sing their music?
That's a great question.
I only think there's a difference because of how long ago those hymns came out. Nobody could find anything on those authors. Whereas today, the technology is so crazy available that people can find anything they want with any church.
He'll find it. He'll find it.
Also,
He'll find it.
to a degree, I think you're right. But the main difference is what they've said is done. They're not speaking anymore.
Let's ask the question.
I was saying that I agree with what you're saying about how back then, like you can't just type in a hymn and then you see the person who wrote it and then you go into like a dive. You have to do a lot of work to find out.
You would have to hit up a library.
Yeah, exactly. Right. You have to actually open a book. Right. But since this is current. Right, you hear, even if we hear a Hillsong song, I love a lot of the old Hillsong songs from when I was going there. They're incredible works of music. But if I share that with somebody, all you have to do now is type in Hillsong, and boom, you're brought right to it. So that's that's where I'm at on it.
I'm a strong advocate for churches writing their own music too.
Preach.
I think that's an awesome
I wish that would
thing.
happen more.
Yeah. And I've been to, there's a couple churches in the area that do that. And I think it's so good because it really comes from a place of where that church is. And it gives them the ability to praise God in a totally unique way.
Yeah.
So I'm in my sect and denomination, whatever you want to call it, the authority of Lord's Day worship is all under the teaching elder, the senior leader pastor. And so any music that's sung, that's done, isn't just picked by a worship leader, but is under that authority. And the main reason is to be good Bereans about it's not just if there's connection to someone we might disagree with, but what is the song actually teaching? I believe worship has two parts in it. And when we're getting into worship, that's what I think. I think it glorifies God and it teaches. It's didactic. And so with the worship we sing, the words, the literal words we're singing as a corporate body matter. And so that should be important. And even if there's if we think that, and I hope we'd all agree on this, that everyone at our church on a Sunday morning, not everyone there is saved. Like the gospel needs to be clear. And if there's music that isn't clear on the gospel, that isn't worth singing in a corporate context. Now, personal believer to personal believer, you have your own maturity. That's different. I think there's a big difference for me in music. Like I've said, what's corporate and what's personal. I can listen to a Hillsong song, even if with all that in the background, and be able to discern and know, okay, that's goofy. But what about someone who can't? I think we have to be super careful about the words we sing.
That's such a great distinction. Like as I used to lead worship, like I said, and that was something that I didn't think about back then. I was like, I want the coolest sounding song, period. And I want people to be moved, period. And as I've grown, I've realized like, yeah, there is attachment that these songs have to people's hearts. And then when they leave, they go and they follow these movements that are still going and they get swept up in that. And so I think for me, it's been more so about, what are the words of the actual song? Are they conveying the message of the gospel accurately? And further than that, are the people who are writing these songs going to be good stewards of the gospel for people to learn from? And it's hard to say because like I genuinely think Bethel is excellent at writing music, production, marketing. They're excellent at it. And to me, that's like so unfortunate because it is the most attractive thing to somebody who may not be a believer yet or who is still coming, into the fray of that. It's the most appealing thing out there. And so I think in order to combat that, we have to be able to distinguish worship music that is going to be on the altar and then music that is for us to listen to in our own time.
Or another example, just a question, someone like a Dustin Kensrew, who started he was Reformed. He came out of the Mark Driscoll Young Restless Reformed camp and wrote some very rich, theologically dense music. He's now no longer a believer, self-professed.
Gonger.
Yeah, what do we do with that? Where when you go to his early music, you would still encounter clear biblical teaching, but now no longer. So I think that there is not a hard and fast line, I guess is what I'm trying to present, and why these are conversations you should have and not just say, I'll never listen to and draw a line in the sand. I think it has to.
My point for this
maybe one hard line we can draw is discipleship, right? If we're under proper discipleship and if we're being led by proper people, we'll be able to separate out like, okay, maybe this is a good Hillsong song, but the movement itself, X, Y, and Z, right? And be able to explain that to people. So I think discipleship plays a big role in that as well.
I think whatever side you're on, I think the important thing is to be consistent. So if you're going to literally say, I'm done with this one band, then I would hope that you would apply those same standards to all the music choices that you apply. I drew a hard line at Bethel because of something they recently did. But before that, I was consistent. It all depended on the theological richness of the song. I'm kind of switching now because I'm seeing the damage that these churches are doing. And the other bands are so amazing that there's really no need to sing those songs anymore. Whereas back in the day, those three bands were the only ones doing amazing music. Now we have such incredible music on that side. So my challenge for anyone is, if you're going to make that distinction and you're going to cancel them all and be consistent. Yeah. Or be on the other side and be consistent. Don't present your argument and be weak and be shaky and not have a good floor to stand on. You know?
And this is where I want to call out one that you mentioned, Austin Stone Worship, I think is solid, particularly because they put how they wrote the song and the scriptural references that they're making in their music up on their website for everybody to see. Like, as a pastor, I love that. Why? Because when I make our liturgy, I can include that as a hyperlink for people to learn more. And so stuff like that. So if you're a worship leader out here and you're writing music, show your work. Like, we would love to see that as people who are trying to teach people. Show where you get these illustrations so we don't have to think, is that a reference to this or that? Or
That's such pastoral advice.
I know, sorry.
All right. Moving on.